Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Kunja Vihari Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakachaри Ashtotar Shatashi Srimad Abhay Charanarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the Semu devotees, all glories to Shri Guru Ignorant, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. This morning we'll read from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 5th chapter, text 13. That is the one verse after the one we read before Ekadashi. 3, 5, 13. Sashradadhanasya vivardhamana Sashradadhanasya vivardhamana Virakti manyatra karoti pungsa Virakti manyatra karoti pungsa Harer padanusmriti nirvritasya Samasta dukhapyayam ashudhate Sashradadhanasya vivardhamana Virakti manyatra karoti pungsa Harer padanusmriti nirvritasya Samasta dukhapyayam ashudhate Sashradadhanasya vivardhamana Virakti manyatra karoti pungsa Harer padanusmriti nirvritasya Samasta dukhapyayam ashudhati Sashradadhanasya vivardhamana Viraktim anyatra karoti pungsa Harer padanusmriti nirvritasya Samasta dukhyapyayam ashudhate. Mataji. Sashradadhanasya vivardhamana virakti manyatra karanti pumsa. Harer padanus smriti nirvritasya samasta dukhyapyayam ashudhate. Sa. Those topics of Krishna or Krishna Kathā, Shradadhanasya, of one who is anxious to hear, Vivardhamana, gradually increasing, Viraktim, indifference, Anyatra, in other things than such topics. Karoti, does, pungsa, of one who is so engaged. Hare, of the Lord. Pada anusmriti, constant remembrance of the lotus feet of the Lord. Nirvritasya, one who has achieved such transcendental bliss. Samasta dukkha, all miseries. Apyayam, vanquished. Ashu, without delay. Dhate, executes. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. For one who is anxious to engage constantly in hearing such topics, Krishna Kathā gradually increases his indifference towards all other things. Such constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna by the devotee who has achieved transcendental bliss vanquishes all his miseries without delay. We must certainly know that on the absolute plane, Krishna Kathā and Krishna are one and the same. The Lord is the absolute truth, and therefore His name, form, quality, etc., which are all understood to be Krishna Kathā, are non-different from Him. Bhagavad Gita, being spoken by the Lord, is as good as the Lord Himself. When a sincere devotee reads Bhagavad Gita, this is as good as seeing the Lord face to face in His personal presence. But this is not so for the mundane wrangler. All the potencies of the Lord are there when one reads Bhagavad Gita, provided it is read in the way recommended in the Gita by the Lord Himself. One cannot foolishly manufacture an interpretation of Bhagavad Gita and still bring about transcendental benefit. Anyone who tries to squeeze some artificial meaning or interpretation from Bhagavad Gita for an ulterior motive is not Shradadhana Pungsa, one engaged anxiously in bona fide hearing of Krishna Kathā. Such a person cannot derive any benefit from reading Bhagavad Gita, however great a scholar he may be in the estimation of a layman. The Shradadhana, or faithful devotee, can actually derive all the benefits of Bhagavad Gita, because by the omnipotency of the Lord, he achieves the transcendental bliss which vanquishes attachment and nullifies all concomitant material miseries. Only the devotee, by his factual experience, can understand the import of this verse spoken by Vidura. The pure devotee of the Lord enjoys life by constantly remembering the lotus feet of the Lord by hearing Krishna Kathā. For such a devotee, there is no such a thing as material existence, and the much advertised bliss of Brahma-ananda is like a fig for the devotee who is in the midst of the transcendental ocean of bliss. Sashradadhanasya vivardhamana virakti manatra karoti pumsah hare padanusmriti nirvritasya samasta dukhap yayam ashudhate. For one who is anxious to engage constantly in hearing such topics, Krishna Kathā gradually increases his indifference towards all other things. Such constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna by the devotee who has achieved transcendental bliss vanquishes all his miseries without delay. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayati girimyat kripatam aham vande shri gurundinatharinam mumagyana timirandasya gyananjana shalakaya chakshurumilitam vinatasmai shri gurave namaha. And so this is the chapter where Vidura is speaking with Maitreya, and in the beginning he is asking him a question, an essential question, because he says, I want to hear about the Supreme Lord, and please tell me the way how to do it, and tell me the way how we can, because he says there are so many activities that people perform in order to attain happiness. But unfortunately, the result of these attempts is only misery. They don't attain what they wish for, but they get the opposite. And so he's playing with these words. You know, people try to attain sukha, but they only get dukkha. And then he says, therefore I want to hear about the Lord, Kṛṣṇa Kathā Amrita, the nectarian words, because that, as we read the day before, when enters into the whole of the years, can cut all the attachment to the griharati, the taste, the attachment for griha, for everything material with which we are surrounded. And that, as Prabhupada explains now in the purport, that attachment is a source of all kinds of miseries. And now here in this verse today, he gives the answer somehow that that's the way we can solve the problem of the painful material existence, just by engaging in constantly hearing of Kṛṣṇa Kathā, that type of topics, sa, of Kṛṣṇa Kathā. But we have to hear with a certain attitude, as Prabhupada explained, not just from anyone and in any way. We have to be shraddha-dhanasya, we have to be faithful. And it's interesting how Prabhupada translates in word for word that one who is anxious to hear, not just faithful, but there is some anxiety, there is a sense of eagerness. And as you remember that famous verse from the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto, which says that Shraddha-dhana munayo, Prabhupada translates there Shraddha-dhana as, someone remembers? What's the translation of the verse? Shraddha-dhana munayo, the certain sages who are inquisitive. They are seriously inquisitive. So these different presentations, like Srila Prabhupada explains, this word gives us enriches our understanding. You know, so it's seriously inquisitive, not just having faith, but you have seriousness. Like in one lecture, also Prabhupada says, here is the qualification. What is that? Tat Shraddha-dhana munayo. One must first be faithful, Shraddha-dhana. He must be very much eager to see God, actually. He must be very serious. So seriously inquisitive, eager, anxious to hear. So that qualification should be there in order to approach the process of hearing. And the hearing itself also should be done in a careful manner, as later on in the 1st canto, also this famous verse, 3rd chapter 44, that one can see something what Prabhupada similarly explained in the purport of today's verse. One can see Krishna in the page of Bhagavad Gita if one hears properly. And Prabhupada says, one can certainly see directly the presence of Lord Shri Krishna in the pages of Bhagavatam if one has heard it from a self-realized great soul like Shukadeva Goswami. So the word there is one has to, because Shukadeva Goswami says, I heard it, the sages assembled in Naimisharanya, Sutta Goswami said, I heard it when Shukadeva Goswami spoke, and I heard it when he uses that word nivishta, and Prabhupada says that the word nivishta means being perfectly attentive. And it means that Sutta Goswami drank the juice of Bhagavatam through his ears. So that is also another qualification for hearing. One must be inquisitive, serious, eager, anxious to hear, and also hear with perfect attention. Has to drink the juice. And this word nivishta, Monium Williams, this defines in different ways. I found it interesting. So one to look at the different meaning also. One means to be turned to intent upon, means attentive, right? You have, that Prabhupada says that's rapt attention in the purport. One has to hear with rapt attention. That's one of the meaning. Then nivishta also means entered, penetrated into. So that's the meaning of also pravrishta karmarandrena, that beautiful verse of the second canto, when this transcendental sound of the Lord's pastime enters through the whole of the ears. It goes into the lotus of the heart and cleanses it, just like the rains in the autumn season clean all the ponds and rivers, like that. So entering, but also nivishta means sticking or staying in, settling down. So you have to be intent, you hear, then it enters, but it also stays. We have this expression, it goes from one ear and goes out from the other, right? That's not real hearing. Real hearing is it goes within and then it sticks upon, it stays in. So another meaning is from, Prabhupada explains, nivishta means profoundly attached. That's from the 7th canto. Prahlad Maharaj's prayer, that's so another meaning, that nivishta, hearing with strong attention, rapt attention. And as Prabhupada explains, of course, this rapt attention is possible when one has a pure mind. And one can have pure mind if you have pure habits, pure life, you're pure in your eating, sleeping, etc. But, he says, but if somehow or other one hears with rapt attention from the proper source, there will be the effect. Therefore, such a strong emphasis about hearing. In fact, Srila Prabhupada, in the verse in the 2nd canto where Shukadeva Goswami directly answers the questions of Parikshit Maharaj, what is the most important thing to do when somebody is completely irrelevant? So if we just follow the process patiently, as Srila Prabhupada answered when he was asked about this question, he says, you will know. You will know. There is no need of asking. You will know. At one point, I think actually it was to Bhakti Charuswami, he said, I will tell you when you're ready. I will reveal it to you. So how does it happen? It happens in some way. You understand it gradually, all of a sudden, but somehow it is realized. And when it is realized, there is no question of whether it's this or that. So this question is not really relevant in that sense. The main point is we want to be servants. We want to develop that. This is the highest goal. We want to come to the stage of being, a certain stage of being where we completely identify with the servant, with the slave. Actually, that's what the acharyas pray, that they want to just act completely in harmony of Krishna's will. And that's what Prabhupada says. This is bhakti, completely pure bhakti. There is no other influence of the modes. If there is some bhinadrik, there is some separate interest. So these questions actually indicate that there is some separate interest. If there is no, we're in complete harmony and we are connected. And that connection, of course, is result only and directly through hearing and chanting. Here, Krishna Kathā, Prabhupada explains, means hearing about the pastimes and repeating and chanting the name, etc. But only through Krishna Kathā, and this purification can take place, and then we can come to that realization, and we can come to that level of bliss, which is a result of realizing your identity as a servant, and then you can experience rasa. And that is the highest goal. Actually, in his commentary to that verse, today's verse, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that one who, Shraddha means to have complete trust and faith that Kṛṣṇa Kathā is the highest goal. And once we understand that this is the highest goal, this is actually very much a question which is discussed in Chaitanya Charitamrita, like this chapter we're reading now, 8th chapter. It is the question which Mahaprabhu was asking, tell me what is the sadhya, the highest goal? And goes on to ask, further, age. And so Ramananda at the end, gives, this is the highest, and Mahaprabhu, yes, there is nothing else. Please tell me what is the way to achieve, what is the sadhana to achieve this sadhya. Similar exchanges is when he went to East Bengal and Tapana Mishra, learned Brahmana, asked him, I'm confused, I read so many scriptures, different goals are recommended. What is the highest and what is the means? So Mahaprabhu says the highest sadhya is the chanting of the holy name, and the means to achieve it is the chanting. So here also with Kṛṣṇa Kathā, that's the highest goal, and that's also the means to achieve. It's so nice, such a nice process. We don't here just to come to something else. And that is actually, if we want to come to this level where we see and serve Krishna, and if that's possible directly through hearing, as Prabhupada explained, just hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, we directly experience Krishna, that's the final goal. And of course we understand that it takes time to realize it and to experience the actual feeling, the actual prema, which will manifest once all the anarthas are removed. But even while with the anarthas, we can experience bliss by just remembering Krishna's lotus feet through this process of hearing. And the last thing I just wanted to conclude is that when we say highest goal, and this is Krishna Prema, attained through hearing, with all our goals, when we have a goals, we actually plan and do something step by step to achieve the goal. So sometimes this highest goal becomes quite distant, because it's the highest, we almost forget about it, and we don't plan our daily life according to that, and because we have so many other duties and goals and things, and then if that highest goal kind of fades away, then it will stay remote. But if it becomes an actual focus in our daily life, in other words, if it's the highest goal, it has the highest priority, which means then the hearing will have the highest priority, then we can steadily and quickly progress towards it. Thank you very much. Are there any comments, reflections? Yes. Okay. I appreciate what you said about self-absorption, that this is a little bit self-absorption.
A very wonderful opportunity at hand. And so I just want to see if you can clarify this conception, that rather than becoming so concerned with, am I this, am I that, when I'm there, rather who I am now, I have the opportunity to be a servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So is that the right understanding? And if that is the right understanding, how can we teach devotees to be satisfied in that identification?
Absolutely. That's our Chaitanya Muidasa Chaitanyaram. That's the prayer of Advaita Acharya. I'm just a servant of Chaitanya. I'm just a servant. I'm just a servant. There is nothing higher than that, he says. Nothing higher. Even, he says, even the Lord himself wants to experience that bliss, being a servant of Krishna. And Advaita Acharya identifies himself. This is my identity. I'm the servant of the servants of Lord Chaitanya. And this is also the prayers of our Acharyas. Tandera charana sevi bhakta sanivas, janame janame hoye bilash. I want to serve those devotees who are servants of the lotus feet of the six Goswamis. Echai gushai kori charana vanan jaha hoite vignanasha vishtapuran. So many prayers that they direct us to develop that mood of servant of the servant of Lord Chaitanya. And how to be satisfied with that and not look for something else. I mean, it's a very simple and humble understanding if we actually are interested to please the object of our love, of that love we want to develop. That's the identity we have to cultivate. I'm a servant. And anything besides exactly what specifics is the most important is I want to serve whatever Krishna wants, no matter what way. And no matter where also. I just heard yesterday Srila Prabhupada was saying the devotee is not interested in any of these types of liberation. And he quotes Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his song. He says, Manasa Deho Gehu, whatever your desire is, if your desire is to be born again, and I don't mind, just place me near the devotees so that I can continue to be a servant and remember that I am a servant. This is the heartfelt desire. And this is what the acharyas pray for, and we have to hear from them also how they reveal their heart, and we can also develop such a desire. Yes, I want to be a servant. This is the highest of all, and everything else is following it. And when this desire, as Prabhupada explained, becomes intense and focused enough, then we have a very clear, specific desire for service, and we see Krishna in a very particular way. But we are attracted to hearing about Krishna. That's an indication. If we say Bhagavad Gita, like in what was mentioned, that Gopi Club, which one of their premises was, anything else than hearing about Krishna's pastimes with the gopis is less of importance. Like Bhagavad Gita is almost Maya, right? And Mother Yashoda's love. Prabhupada was furious when he heard that. I heard from the servant, he was shaking. And especially on that comment, and he was saying, what do they don't know about Mother Yashoda's love? So no matter what our relationship is, when we hear about other types, we are ecstatic because all of Krishna's relationships, they are very attractive and they invoke our loving sentiments towards him. So then we want to hear anything about Krishna, especially Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, which is full of Krishna Kathā in that way. And then we will stay in that humble position of just desiring to be a simple servant. Remote it. How many times Prabhupada said, and he personally said, I just want to be a servant 1,000,000 times removed. Or like Guru Govinda Maharaj says, from all the servants, if there is a list, I'm at the bottom. Yes, Maharaj.
I just wanted to bring one verse to mind. Mukundamala Stotra text 25 is a nice verse on this topic. Majjanmana palamidam madhukaitubare mat prartaniya madhunugraha esha eva twadbritya britya parichakara paricharaka britya brityasya britya iti mam smara lokanata. O enemy of Madhu and Kaitaba, O Lord of the universe, the perfection of my life and the most cherished mercy you could show me would be for you to consider me the servant of 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 your servant.
6 times. Thank you. Vaisheshika Prabhu.
Several years ago at Sadhu Sangha, we were selling Bhagavatam sets, and we had a scheme to sell more by having luminaries who were present at the Sadhu Sangha to sign them. And we asked Giriraj Maharaj to sign, and he'd pick on the sign page at the very bottom, so nobody could go below. So nobody could go below him. He did it every time. And I always remember that, just this is the default mode of the devotees. Just put me on the bottom list, like you said.
Thank you. Anything else? Yes? Oh, well, I think I saw her, so.
Hare Kṛṣṇa. On the topic of absorption in hearing, now I really appreciated that topic. I've been listening to Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj's conceptual study of Srimad Bhagavatam, and he mentioned that in the first 2 cantos, that is one of the major points, the qualification of the speaker, but also the qualification of the listener. So Maharaj Pariksit, because he was so absorbed in hearing Sukadeva Goswami speak, that at the end there's Maharaj Pariksit, when he left his body, he took his spiritual body right away as a gopi. But the sages who were also listening with attention, they weren't so absorbed, and there's no real record that they made that same amount of spiritual advancement by listening. They definitely benefited. And then there's a Vedic story that's in the Puranas of 2 brothers. One was a very pious, devoted brother, and one was very sinful and degraded. And the degraded brother, I can't remember their names, sorry.
Gokarna was the
Gokarna and the other one.
Dundukari.
Anyway, yeah. Anyway, thank you. The degraded brother was actually killed by prostitutes and chopped up. They killed him in a very gruesome way. Anyway, so his brother decided to recite Srimad Bhagavatam. He became a ghost. The sinful brother became a ghost. He recited Srimad Bhagavatam to him. He more or less installed him in a bamboo rod and sat around and recited Srimad Bhagavatam. And so the other inhabitants of the village came to hear the Bhagavatam also. And after every canto, there was a pop in the bamboo rod, because he was listening so much, and there was a little explosion. Finally, he got to the end of the Bhagavatam, and a Vaikuntha plane came down and took the previously sinful brother in a spiritual body back to the spiritual world. And all the inhabitants of the village thought, we were listening. Why didn't they come for us? Why did they come for us? And so the brother said, we weren't listening with such rapt attention. And they said, okay, do it again. And this time we'll listen with rapt attention. And we did it, and they all went back to the spiritual world.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Hare. Okay.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your class and making so many beautiful points about the quality and the importance of hearing and everybody's contribution. I just have a question for my own clarification. I'm really trying to understand this topic better, so I'm taking advantage of your association. Please excuse me if I'm being foolish. However, you mentioned
No, you're not off track, of course. We'll hear all about it now. Just now coming, these verses which will come now will be Mahaprabhu asking how to attain that highest goal, and then Ramananda Roy will explain that we have to be day and night absorbed, 24 hours. And Prabhupada in purpose, he will explain it nicely. So it's not difficult to understand, there is no contradiction. We have to be eager to hear, and when there is sufficient hearing and sufficient purification, there will be eagerness to serve, and when that eagerness increases, that will be also particular eagerness, and that eagerness, Rupa Goswami explains, is the only qualification to practice that spontaneous sadhana called Raganuga. So it's spontaneous, it comes naturally, and when it comes, then you just internally meditate. Srila Prabhupada explains it in Nectar of Devotion very nicely. Now in the purports we'll hear soon. That's what we have to do. Well, I mean, eagerness is eagerness. If you're eager to serve Krishna, that is a bona fide eagerness. And if it is in a particular way, then, of course, that's also what is expected, what's required. But, as you say, eager to know, that's what I tried to explain a little bit. It could become really a mental thing. And as Vaisheshika Prabhu quoted Bhaktivinoda Thakur, if you don't have the adhikara, the qualification for that, or the level of purification, then literally he says your intelligence will spin, and then you'll get confused and you can fall down even. So it's not artificial, but it's not also something which is like the Haribhama devotee is Raganuga is very high. We don't even think about anything related to that. It's now we are sadhana bhaktas. I said, hey, when you read for the last time Nectar of Devotion, and he told me, 10 years ago or something, I said, well, Raganuga is part of sadhana. It's a sadhana bhakti. It's a practice bhakti. It's not a perfection. It's not bhava bhakti or prema bhakti. But still, it has to be there. It's all what Rupa Goswami explains it very nicely. What is the difference in the Raganuga sadhana? The externals, the practices are the same: hearing, chanting, everything. Only a few things are not done in Raganuga. For example, meditating in Archana, meditating on the queens of Dwaraka, if especially you are attracted to Goloka Vrindavana. But that's it. Everything else is the same. But the motivation or the stimulus is different, Rupa Goswami. One is logic and Shastra and Vidi, Vaidya Bhakti, and the other is the Laulam, just eagerness to serve or assist those close associates of Krishna. So if you have, I mean, there is a whole book on that topic by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He explains, and in the beginning he says that there are different types also of Raganuga, and also Jiva Goswami mentions that there is Raganuga which before the Ruchi is born, Ajatta. In other words, you're still even, but you must be firmly established in the Vaidhi. But it can be, he says, it's either developed in this lifetime or it's from previous lifetime, this desire, spontaneous desire. In the case when it's from previous lifetime, it can be very quickly. He says you meet a spiritual master, you get initiated, and then this eagerness develops because you had it from before. So we can't judge really who you are. You just came yesterday and you you say that you are attracted in a certain way. We don't know, we don't know who comes and where in the devotional process. But following Srila Prabhupada's examples, we have to be cautious and reserved, but not shun it, not just, no, this is, as you say, this is completely off track or something. This is what is described. This is the method if we want to go to Goloka Vrindavan. If we don't do that, if we just practice Vaidhi, the rules in on revelation, we'll go to Vaikuntha, which is also fine, but it depends on our desire. I think, okay. Can we continue a few more minutes or we have to stop? We haven't heard the bell. Anyway. Okay, one more question. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your class. I just want something to clarify. We were hearing from the readings of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Lord Chaitanya. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya asked which of these 9 processes is the most important, then Lord Chaitanya said that it is chanting. So now we are hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam that actually the most important is to hearing. So please can you elaborate a little bit to understand which context is given this?
Both are most important. It's not one or the other. Like Prabhu emphasizes, this will come in the later chapters, that the 5 most important ones, and begins actually with sadhu sangha. And we could say this is most important because this brings hearing of Bhagavatam, Sankirtan, and then living in the holy place and the attraction and loving service to the deities. So they're all most important. But the way Prabhupada puts it in that and in some other places, it's like a foundation. If you, especially in the beginning stage, before we are have developed real attraction, and then when we chant, we are with Krishna. Before that stage, we'll be distracted, and unless we hear, our mind about Krishna will hear about something else. There's no other. We always hear something. Some sounds will enter, and if we hear something else, that's what will come in the sphere of the mind when we chant. But if we hear about Krishna, and then when we chant, that remembrance will come. And that's what is expected, to remember Krishna while we chant. Therefore, Prabhupada says, if you don't hear sufficiently and properly, the other methods won't be so effective. Otherwise, like Haridas Thakur was just chanting, of course he also went to hear when they were reading Bhagavatam in Puri and Tota Gopinath's garden. The last, someone else? Oh.
Thanks for your class, Prabhu. My question is about hearing. When we're in the association of devotees, we're hearing either kirtan or class, and you are really hearing attentively. As you mentioned, you can feel like it entering into the heart, and there's this beautiful feeling in the heart when you're hearing nicely. And then there's other times where it's like you feel like you're trying to hear attentively, but it's not going in. It's just stuck. I'm just wondering if you might have some ideas on what might be blocking that, the sound vibration entering into the heart.
I think I mentioned that Prabhupada explains you in order to hear with rapt attention, you need to have pure mind, and your life, your habits really will determine that. So we prepare actually to hear properly. We lead in such a way, we mold our life in such a way to be able to have sattvic, consciousness. So then there is no distraction. I mean, it's very difficult nowadays, but if we endeavor, and therefore also before we hearing, we do some prayers, and we kind of, okay, I'm sitting here and I'll be doing that. So that's all preparation. But sometimes the mind is just too disturbed, we are not here. The body is here, the mind is there, and we just have to try to bring it back again and again, say, no, I will hear, and with some endeavor, it will happen. So I want to conclude with one last verse from Adi Lila. This is towards the end of the first chapter, about hearing Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. Simply hearing submissively will free one's heart from all the faults of ignorance, and thus one will achieve deep love of Kṛṣṇa and be completely satisfied. Hare Krishna. Śrīmad Bhagavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai.